clips like what Sora, Pika, and Runway do. With just a simple text prompt, you can generate entire videos with scripts and voiceovers. It removes all friction and makes the process so intuitive and fluid that it disappears, letting users focus entirely on their vision and their idea. So I nerded out and asked it to make a Lego mashup of Breaking Bad. The result blew me away. Today, class, we're going to learn about chemistry. You can also edit anything you like adding your own voice. From short films and product videos to educational content, the possibilities in video game art are usually endless. You can try video game ideas, but if you want to use experience, I highly recommend that you look for the generative plan, which starts at $96 a month and gives you easy-to-use generative videos. If you really get the videos, it's simply go to the comment section and buy some seconds. Now back to the show. The Sinaloa cartel is headquartered in Mexico, but has a presence throughout the country and internationally. From Latin America to the Caribbean and North America, it's known for drug trafficking, money laundering, and violence. And joining is no easy task either. You need to be loyal and willing to do what's asked of you without hesitation.
If you are asked to kill someone, you must do it without thinking. If you don't do it, they beat you up and you're out. It's a test. If you can't do it, you don't do it.
Founded in the late 60s, the cartel started small with a focus on smuggling marijuana into the U.S. In the decades that followed, the legend of Die Glock refused to die. Journalists, researchers, and whistleblowers.
Sure, here. Okay, here's some videos. Okay, here's some videos.
The Kirlian biofield camera. In 1939, inside a modest Soviet laboratory,
We were created by a higher power, and this is not a guess, not a belief, but an acknowledgement from one of the greatest minds of humanity.
the Kirlian biofield camera. In 1939, inside a modest Soviet laboratory tucked away in Krasnodar, Russia, a maintenance technician named Semyon Kirlian and his wife Valentina made an accidental discovery that would echo through the corridors of fringe science for decades. While repairing high-frequency electrical equipment used in hospitals, Kirlian noticed something strange. When a patient's body came into contact with a high-voltage circuit, but without pain or harm, it emitted a brief and distinct light. Fascinated, the couple decided to replicate the phenomenon using photographic plates and electrical fields. What they produced stunned even themselves. Images began to emerge showing leaves, insects, and even human fingertips surrounded by glowing halos of colored light. These weren't reflections or burns. The effect persisted even when the object was placed on insulating material. Kirlian claimed they had captured something the human eye could never see unaided, the living energy field of matter. The photographs were vivid, ethereal, and alarmingly consistent. In some cases, when the subject was under emotional stress, the glow shifted in shape and intensity. When the subject was ill, the aura dimmed, but one image in particular defied explanation. A leaf was torn in half, with only one portion placed on the plate. The resulting photo, however, showed the outline of the entire leaf glowing faintly, as if the missing half still existed in another form. The Kirlians repeated the experiment with multiple samples and received similar results. They called it the phantom leaf effect. To them, this wasn't photography. It was a method of revealing an invisible dimension. Technically, the camera functioned by high-frequency electric. May 18th, 1945. During the tumultuous years of World War II, Nazi Germany embarked on a relentless pursuit of technological supremacy, pouring resources into projects that ranged from
In the Third Reich, science was into In the crucible of World War II, Germany's most brilliant
Top 10 most astonishing inventions of World War II. Why was he in his army so Number 1 inventions.
In the Third Reich, science was integrated into the system of power as a functional tool. Every product. But he rejected what he called intellectualism, because he believed it took science away from its real function, serving the state. In many speeches, Hitler said he did not believe in science by itself. He only accepted it if it helped to strengthen the body, improve the race, or build useful tools. He did not trust laboratories where theories were discussed, but factories where concrete things were produced. For him, the value of a scientist depended on his usefulness to the party. During the rise of the regime, Hitler surrounded himself with technical advisors. Some were engineers, others doctors or logistics experts. He did not ask them for scientific opinions, but for results. He wanted quick solutions, functional designs, projects that served his plans for territorial expansion or social cleansing. One of the most marked aspects was his obsession with racial purity applied to medicine. He ordered doctors and scientists to work on methods to eliminate what he called undesirable life, people with mental illnesses, disabilities, or hereditary conditions. Medicine became an instrument of biological control. Hitler also imposed ideological criteria within the academic world. Universities were cleansed of Jews, communists, and any figure who did not fit the party profile. Scientific publications were censored. Only theories aligned with the official ideology could circulate, regardless of whether they were true or not. Even in areas like physics, the regime created its own Aryan version, that is, a science without Jewish influence. Great names like Einstein were discarded, not for their mistakes, but for their origin. Mediocre researchers who aligned with the policy were supported, even if their theories were weak or outdated. Meanwhile, real advancements came from military or industrial sectors. Companies like IG Farben and Siemens collaborated directly with the regime, manufacturing everything from chemical products to electrical systems for concentration camps. Science was no longer independent, but a tool of power. Hitler believed that true talent lay in those who could build, not in those who thought. That is why he supported engineers who made bridges, weapons, or trains, and despised mathematicians who spoke of formulas without immediate utility. That mentality shaped the entire scientific policy of the regime. There was no interest in training young scientists. What mattered was having loyal technicians, willing to obey without question. Many brilliant researchers escaped the country before it was too late. Others were forced to collaborate or remain silent to survive. Scientists were threatened, arrested, or executed if they did not achieve results. After the war, many of those same scientists justified themselves by saying they were just following orders. Others said they worked for science, not for the party. Some offered themselves to the Allies to avoid punishment, handing over their knowledge in exchange for protection. The truth is that science in the Third Reich was not free. It was controlled, used, and often distorted. Knowledge was applied not to improve lives, but to destroy them. And although there were real advancements, they all... The science that led to the first nuclear weapons began as basic laboratory work, full of excitement and frantic pace. Some of the researchers had no idea where their work would take them. Others, in the midst of Hitler's regime, did see the risk from the start. What happened after the discovery of fission became a central episode in the success of the United States and the United Kingdom in building the first weapon of mass destruction, and in Germany's failure to achieve it. This story shows how scientists acted under pressure. They wanted to be first, avoided sharing achievements, and dodged responsibility. In the spring of 1933, while hundreds of scientists were being expelled from universities and institutes in Germany, Otto Hahn and Lise Meitner were working in Berlin at a laboratory of the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute. Meitner was Austrian and Jewish, although she had converted to Protestantism. Already at that time, she was struggling to keep her position. She was the only woman physicist in Germany at that level, but she could not publish without Hahn as co-author. Hahn, on the other hand, could sign on his own. In 1934, the team began bombarding uranium with neutrons to see what new elements formed. The goal was to create what were called transuranic elements, heavier than uranium. In Italy, Enrico Fermi was doing something similar and claimed to have found new elements. But what was actually happening was different. When uranium nuclei were hit, they split. No one knew it yet. Several years passed with confusing results. The data did not match expectations. In 1938, Meitner had to flee Germany after the annexation of Austria. She escaped through the Netherlands and arrived in Stockholm. From there, she remained in contact with Hahn. At the end of that year, Hahn and his colleague Fritz Strassmann sent a sample of bombarded uranium to a chemical laboratory. The result was unexpected. Barium had formed, a much lighter element. Something did not add up. Hahn wrote to Meitner, who, together with her nephew Otto Frisch, tried to understand what was happening. On a winter holiday, while walking through the forest in Sweden, Meitner and Frisch discussed the phenomenon. They concluded that the nucleus had split. They used the term fission, taken from biology, to explain the break. Frisch was the one who wrote it in a letter sent to Niels Bohr. Bohr, upon reading it, realized what it meant. He immediately left for the United States, where the discovery caused a major impact. It was understood that, if a nucleus split, it released an enormous amount of energy. If that reaction could be controlled, it would become a new source of energy. If it could be triggered in an uncontrolled way, it could create an explosion. In Berlin, physicists also quickly understood what this implied. The Nazi regime, at war or close to it, was seeking any advantage. That is why, in April of 1939, a secret group of scientists was formed to study fission. They called it the Uranium Club. Among them were Walter Gerlach, Kurt Diebner, Werner Heisenberg, and other well-known names. The group met for the first time on the 26th of April. Diebner from the Ministry of Armaments was the link between science and the government. Heisenberg and his colleagues knew that if a chain reaction could be achieved, two paths would open, one to produce energy, the other to make weapons. In June, Heisenberg submitted a secret report explaining the principles of a nuclear bomb. He said that if a critical mass of enriched uranium could be achieved, an explosion could be triggered. But there were enormous technical obstacles. First, separating the isotope uranium-235, the only one useful for a bomb, from the more common uranium-238. Second, sustaining the chain reaction. Third, producing that mass in sufficient quantity. Heisenberg wrote that this would take years and would require resources that Germany at war could hardly dedicate. Even so, the work continued. They tried to build a prototype reactor. Graphite was initially used as a moderator, but the first attempts failed. Later they chose heavy water. Germany had access to a plant in Norway that produced it. That reinforced the regime's interest. In parallel, it was studied whether plutonium, an element not found in nature but formed inside a reactor, could be used as an explosive. That path, however, also required functional reactors. and the reactors did not work, neutrons were absorbed by the materials used, and critical mass was not achieved. Meanwhile, in the United States, with some
but no trace of the bell. Considered impossible today. Its disappearance, or its existence, fuels the enduring suspicion that the bell was not destroyed, but hidden. Whether buried beneath official secrets or spirited away to another part of the world, the bell remains a symbol of a future tampered with and then concealed. The magnetic viewing device. In the final months of 1943, deep inside a heavily guarded laboratory near Nordhausen, a group of SS engineers unveiled a prototype unlike any other. It was not a weapon nor a communication device, but something far more unsettling. The object resembled a telescope, except its lenses were made of a black crystalline material, and its frame was encased in rotating magnetic rings. The project bore a name that appeared only once in German archives, Project Seher, meaning Project Seer. According to a fragmentary Soviet field report uncovered in the 1970s, the device was discovered by the Army forces during the capture of a secret railway convoy. It was stored in a lead-lined crate, labeled only with the Nazi code and an encrypted serial number. When tested under controlled conditions, the device emitted no light and produced no images. But when brought near sealed metal containers, it revealed internal structures, gears, wires, even writing on hidden surfaces. It could see through steel. Later examination by Soviet scientists at a classified facility near Lubyanka suggested the device operated on a principle unknown to modern optics. Instead of relying on light refraction, it used tightly modulated magnetic fields that interacted with materials at the molecular level, allowing the viewer to peer through dense objects as if they were transparent. Some speculated it worked by detecting shifts in electromagnetic resistance, translating them into visual feedback through the crystalline core. The technology was unlike anything in existence. When disassembled, the interlink system dissolved into powder upon contact with air. Only a single surviving magnetic ring was preserved, but its alloy composition could not be replicated. Soviet engineers tried to reverse engineer the device for nearly a decade before abandoning the project altogether. No public record of Project Seer was ever released. No patent exists. The original German scientists involved either disappeared or were absorbed into Allied post-war programs. In 1984, a former East German physicist gave a radio interview describing a Nazi periscope that could penetrate armor without radiation. The recording was pulled from the air within 24 hours, and the physicist was never heard from again. What remains is a haunting question. How did a crumbling regime, surrounded on all sides, produce a device that no modern nation has reproduced? Could such a tool, in the wrong hands, be used not for discovery, but for surveillance, control, or targeted elimination? If Project Seer was real, then it means that the limits of human perception were reached long ago, and something that should be vision was taken away. The coal generator. In February 1945, inside a snow-covered facility on the outskirts of Prague, SS engineers prepared to evacuate as Allied troops approached. Among the items prioritized for removal was not a weapon nor a communication system, but a sealed cylindrical device stored inside a refrigerated vault. Its name was marked only with red stenciling. Kälteanlage 27 War, the coal generator. According to fragments of Czech resistance files, it was the centerpiece of an experimental program to produce clean, continuous energy without fuel or heat. Unlike conventional engines of the time, the coal generator operated in complete silence. Its core housed a magnetic fluid suspended in a pressurized chamber, surrounded by rotating rings that induced an electrical current through shifting electromagnetic fields. The machine reportedly emitted no exhaust, required no combustion, and remained cold to the touch even during peak output. One Czech engineer, who defected after the war, described the sensation of standing near it as like walking past a glacier in total darkness, where air itself seems to contract. Resistance fighters who briefly infiltrated the site before its abandonment reported severe drops in temperature, with walls coated in frost despite active heating systems. Nearby instruments malfunctioned. attempted to dismantle the unit, the cooling effect intensified, forcing them to flee. Within days, the facility was cleared and destroyed by retreating German forces. No equipment was recovered. In 2003, a sealed packet of wartime German technical memos surfaced at an auction in Zurich. Inside was a schematic labeled Magnetische Umkehr Camera, magnetic inversion chamber, matching descriptions of the cold generator's inner housing. It included details about an oscillation chamber designed to manipulate magnetic entropy, an idea not formally introduced in Western science until decades later. Today's scientists argue that a machine extracting energy without generating heat would violate known thermodynamic laws, but scattered references to similar technologies appear in post-war black project budgets, especially within Soviet and American labs. The cold generator is never named, but diagrams appear almost
What just
identical in
happened?
principle. No mainstream
This
institution
boy showed
acknowledges
it.
its existence.
There was
No
another.
museum holds its
There was
parts.
another.
The name itself does not appear in any official
That
Nazi
admin,
or
right?
Allied archives. Yet enough fragments remain to suggest that such a device may have worked,
How?
or at least come terrifyingly close. If it did function, then the implications are staggering.
What?
A source of power that required no fuel, produced no waste, and operated in silence could have transformed the world. But perhaps that was the problem. Perhaps it was never meant to be shared. Perhaps it was not destroyed, but hidden by those who feared what it would unmake. The sonic paralysis
Yeah,
weapon.
so
In the autumn of 1944, inside the heavily secured confines of the Oranienburg testing grounds north of Berlin, a group of SS engineers activated a weapon that left no physical wounds, but rendered every living target within range motionless. The experiment was classified under the name Project Schallbruch, or Sound Fraction, and it marked one of the most disturbing episodes in the Third
wait,
Reich's
comment
exploration of
on my
neurological
live
organs.
chat.
The
Like
device itself
if you're the one who like made the stream,
mounted on a wheeled platform
comment.
with a dish-shaped emitter nearly 2 meters in diameter. Unlike traditional sonic equipment used for communication or submarine detection,
Yeah,
this one
so
emitted infrasound,
I love
low
criminality.
frequency waves below the threshold of human hearing, capable of resonating with internal organs in the nervous system. Test reports uncovered by British intelligence after the war indicated that the device could
Don't
paralyze
shoot me.
human
Don't
targets
shoot
at
me.
distances exceeding 30 meters. Subjects exposed to a 10-second burst collapsed without resistance, their muscles locked and unresponsive. Some remained conscious
Cool.
but incapable of speech or movement. One case involved a test subject whose heart rhythm became irregular for several minutes before normalizing without any physical trauma. The project lead, SS
My
physicist Dr.
video
Hans
quality is
Zimmer,
bad.
that vocal resonance neutralization is
Okay.
achievable with sustained frequency modulation between 7 and 9 hertz. What makes this technology even more disturbing is the way it was conceived. Upon German impact, the Oranienburg site was reduced to rubble
The
by
fuck is
targeted
this?
Allied bombing. But according to an OSS memo dated July 1945, a transport
Go
convoy
exploring,
carrying
man.
several
I'll
components of
continue.
the
Like the
sonic
fuck?
weapon was intercepted near Hamburg. Its contents, once cataloged, were classified and transferred to undisclosed
I
U.S.
didn't even
facilities.
get
The
a chance
laws
to
list
get
the
a
device
gun,
simply
then I
as
got
frequency modulation array, non-lethal prototype. In 1972, a leaked RAND Corporation memo briefly mentioned a theoretical
Let me
weapon
try
that
again.
could disable hostiles through neurological interferences, and the few references that exist seem to vanish as quickly as they appear. If the Nazis developed a weapon that could shut down the human nervous system using only vibration, it would represent one of the
Who
most
showed him?
terrifying intersections of physics and biology ever conceived. A machine that leaves no scars, no smoke, and no sound, yet incapacitates its victims in seconds, is not just a breakthrough. It is a threat to the very idea of autonomy. The shape-shifting aircraft. In December 1944, radar operators stationed along the French border reported an object moving at impossible angles through heavy fog. It changed form mid-flight, shifting from a triangular outline to a narrow silhouette before disappearing entirely from the radar screen. Pilots sent to intercept described a silent, reflective craft that appeared to shimmer and pulse as it moved, distorting the air around it. What they encountered was not a jet or a balloon. According to post-war files recovered from the archives of Messerschmitt AG, it may have been a prototype from Project Silver Spiegel, Project Silver Mirror. This aircraft did not have wings in the conventional sense. Instead, it was constructed using a series of flexible metallic plates, layered over a gel-like substructure composed of ferrofluid but reactive polymers. Internal systems allowed the body of the craft to respond to changes in speed, pressure, and trajectory. The purpose was not only to
Oh, haka.
giving it the appearance of liquid metal below. Engineering memos signed by Dr. Klaus Berger, a leading aerodynamicist within Messerschmitt, detailed a propulsion system that used an internal magnetic turbine rather than jet fuel. This turbine was connected to a field-stabilizing coil array that created lift without combustion, eliminating exhaust trails and acoustic signatures. It was not only the shape of the aircraft that changed during flight. Its interaction with gravity appeared to fluctuate as well. One prototype reportedly completed 2 successful test flights before vanishing during the third. No wreckage was recovered. Witnesses from a nearby town claimed to see a flash of bluish light in the sky, followed by complete silence. The event was marked as a systems failure, but
Oh, this game has no recoil.
They found the facility flooded and rigged with explosives. A single fuselage section remained intact, but its outer skin had deteriorated into a gelatinous substance that defied analysis. Samples were taken by American scientists and sent to Wright Field in Ohio, where they were classified as unidentifiable advanced composites. None were ever shown to the public. In modern aviation, no nation has successfully created a craft capable of in-flight morphing without mechanical flaps or hinges. Experiments in biomimetic engineering are ongoing, but nothing compares to the descriptions found in the original German documents. If Project Silver Spiegel reached operational capacity, it means that the boundaries of aircraft design and even our understanding of solid matter were pushed far beyond
Who's this person watching my stream right now?
that could change shape mid-flight and evade detection would not only redefine warfare, it would demand a rewriting
Who's
of
the
everything
person who's watching my stream?
the liquid armor. In the spring of 1945, as Allied forces advanced towards central Germany, an obscure materials laboratory near the town of Blankenberg was hurriedly evacuated. Inside, engineers under SS jurisdiction had been testing a revolutionary form of personal protection, an armor that would like water but solidified internally referred to as Project Hauptstahl or Skin Steel. The material represented a radical departure from metal plating and rigid composites. It was described in one recovered memo as a responsive fluid membrane capable of shock conversion. Witness accounts from Czech prisoners forced to clean the lab reported that guards wearing black experimental uniforms with glossy dark gray shields conducted strange movement drills inside impact chambers. When struck by rubber bullets or heavy weights, the suits emitted a sharp vibration and then returned to their fluid state in seconds. The surface shimmered like oil, but when tested under pressure, it resisted penetration with an efficiency rivaling steel. One SS fuel report noted a successful deflection of small caliber rounds.
And this sucker guy, bro, oh my.
Indicated the material was based on a suspension of magnetic nanoparticles inside a sheer thickening compound. When struck by a high-speed object, the magnetic fields within the fluid aligned instantaneously, causing it to solidify momentarily and disperse kinetic energy across the surface. Once the impact ceased, the particles reverted to a disordered state, allowing the fluid to become flexible again. When Allied troops reached the facility, they found only empty bags and a single armored glove used to a laboratory. According to a classified OSS summary dated August 1945, the armor's active compound degraded during storage and attempts to reproduce it failed due to unstable post-synthetic conditions. No complete suit was for decades, the concept of fluid armor was considered theoretical until in 2006, British defense researchers announced the development of a sheer thickening fabric designed to enhance Kevlar vests. The scientific community hailed it as
like if you're watching,
yet the principle behind it
like if you're watching,
and the materials used bore uncanny similarities to the forgotten notes of
you like if
Project
you're watching.
Hauptstahl. Why did it take 6 decades for modern science to publicly rediscover something that appeared to exist in the final days of Nazi Germany? Why were the only
Like if you're watching me right now.
buried in suppressed archives, and why did no nation attempt to develop this
Like
until the 21st
if you're watching me right now,
liquid arms were
like
then the
like the stream.
vulnerability on the battlefield
The person who's watching me, like the stream, like the
a
stream.
suit that flowed like skins but not really advanced. It borders on science fiction, production rings. Its outer shell was layered with light glass, while the inner structure was studded with anti-fiction set in ray shaped pathways.